Now, this is the part where you're going to make a lot of the women jealous / envious / angry. How long was your actual labor from when you got to the point where you're officially in labor to when the baby's out?
It was only 8 minutes and 4 pushes. And this is our first baby.
Yeah. Hi, Editor Brendan here, and I just want to let you know that this video is a long deep dive into our entire process of the prenatal, natal, and postnatal parts of having a baby in France as foreigners. If there's a specific part of the process that you want to jump right to, you can find it in the chapter markers below. But if you have just gotten pregnant or you're just thinking about it, I suggest you watch the whole video all the way through, and that way you can hear things in context that will probably be helpful later on. Thanks for watching. When morning sickness hit Susie in Beijing, we already had one foot in France. So from winning the lottery into Beijing's top maternity hospital to an 8-minute delivery in a private hospital in Paris, here's how we did it.
Welcome to Chez Davis.
Okay, so first let us tell you who this video is ideally for, because if you're a French person, you've grown up here and you're in the healthcare system already, and you probably know a lot of this already. This video is specifically aimed at expats / immigrants who are non-French, and you're either already pregnant and you're planning a move, or maybe you're here and you're thinking about having a baby. So we're going to tell you everything we learned along the way that might help you if you're in a similar situation. In our case, we were moving back to France after having been here for a honeymoon reunion. We got back home to Beijing, and a few weeks into being back in Beijing, Susie started experiencing what we learned was morning sickness. So that launched a massive 2-track process, first to find her healthcare immediately in Beijing, and also to plan the move to France and get everything set up to have a baby. So the first thing that Susie needed to do was to get prenatal care in Beijing, and it's pretty hard to do that, right?
Yeah, just imagine Beijing is such a big city, and there are so many pregnant women, so many babies waiting to be delivered. So it is very, very difficult to find a hospital to have that spot for yourself. We were pretty lucky.
We were really fortunate that she was able to get a spot and do the initial tests. The other part of our prep, though, was preparing to move to France, because pretty early on we were determined to get here and have the baby here if at all possible. So I dug into the application process for our visas. I knew that I would be applying for the passport talent because of my career as a film producer. That had already been set up a bit with my French colleagues, and so I had to get really heavily into that process while also working on finding the healthcare for Susie and now our Geneva, finding a maternity hospital and a doctor and everything that goes along with that, so that we could make the move confident that we had a place to actually have a baby when we got here. So you must have lived in France as a resident for at least 3 months before you can apply for insurance. So in our case, we moved here and then had the baby 6 weeks later, 5 weeks later, after we officially started our residence, which meant that we kept these receipts that they give you, and theoretically you are eligible to be reimbursed for those up to 2 years after the fact once you have your health insurance set up. But what I would suggest, so you don't have to deal with that sort of reimbursement issue, is if you're thinking of having a baby in France, try to move here 3, 4, 5 months ahead of that time, so that you have time to get into the healthcare system, and then you can get your carte vitale and you don't have to deal with reimbursements. We're currently, as we're recording this, sitting in the middle of hoping we get reimbursed for things, and it's still to be determined. Okay, so in terms of where to have your baby, you want to, of course, find a maternity hospital, and some really big public hospitals have a maternity section, but there are private maternities as well that are just focused on that. So with the public maternities, you have lower fees, but they also have limited slots for non-residents, and of course there's a heavier language barrier. You're unlikely to find any English speakers or other languages besides French, which was my experience when I was calling and trying to speak with people in admissions at some of these places when we were looking through a list. And that was a real big challenge. But fortunately, they also have private maternities like the one we chose, St. Felicity. Now, the private maternities do about 3,000 births a year in the case of St. Felicity, and they're a little more English friendly. We found some English and we could function, and it was a really great experience. And that experience is part of what we knew would be so different than giving birth in Beijing, because how many children a year does that maternity in Beijing, how many do they do per year roughly?
My Beijing maternity hospital delivers about 15,000 babies each year. So the amount of care, amount of attention, amount of love you got is dramatically different.
Just for a frame of reference, the private hospitals are, of course, more than the public hospitals. St. Felicity is only about 20% higher than a public hospital, about 1.2 times the rates of a public hospital, notwithstanding what the doctors charge, but the actual cost of the hospital itself, the maternity itself. The American hospital in Paris is one of the best hospitals, as is St. Felicity, but the American hospital is much more expensive. It's 2 times or even 3 times as expensive as a public, so it's a lot more than St. Felicity. They have a wonderful staff, and actually our doctor ended up sending us to American Hospital because he also had privileges to practice there. Some of his colleagues he had do additional tests for Susie were based there, so we went there a few times, and it was great, but we're super happy that we discovered and chose St. Felicity. But the next thing I want to talk about is how did we actually choose a maternity? Well, when we were back in China, we had not started using ChatGPT yet. And now I would say that would be my first thing to do, is go to have it help you do deep research, compare and contrast different things, find different resources for you. But we were relying basically on searches, and I was using my phone to search on Google, and it was laborious. And I found these lists of the best maternities, and I was making a spreadsheet, and I was going through there, and I would want to try to find an email, but very often you had to call. That's very typical in France, is they want a phone call. And of course you cannot expect to get anything other than French, which makes sense. We're in France. So one tip is to do what I would do, which is to prepare a call script in Google Translate. I would basically turn on the microphone and I would speak my introduction of myself and my wife and why I'm calling, and then the questions I would be asking, such as, do you have availability? Her due date is estimated to be middle of January. And I would speak my questions, and then I would speak what I assume the different answers are, the versions of yes, no, or maybe to the different questions. And I would translate all that, and then I would listen to the call script translation as I'm reading it. And I would do this a few times before I would get on the phone so that I had some idea of what they were saying. If you're exhausted hearing that, trust me, it's more exhausting to do it. But if you're not fluent in French yet, you want to do something like that, or else it's going to be really difficult. I did find a few places that had email addresses, and now that we live here, we discovered one other resource. So here's your second big tip of the video. There is a website we're huge fans of called Doctolib. Amazing. It is a place to research and book any kind of healthcare you can imagine in France, and they have a full English option available on their website. You can choose French, English.
That's one of those most useful app people use in France. Everybody uses the app to book a doctor. So if you're a doctor in France, 99% of chances you will have your page on Doctolib.
Absolutely. And what we've discovered having lived here now is that when you go to look up a provider, doctor, sage-femme, pharmacy, it also lists the languages people speak. Mm-hmm. So I found out through just good old-fashioned searching that the doctor who we had sort of identified as probably the best bet based on his amazing resume and history, and that he practiced and had been a leader at different times at American Hospital as well as at St. Felicity, that he spoke English. And now that we know him, we learned that his wife is American and he's spoken English pretty much his entire life. So we got really lucky, because it was very important to us that Susie's OBGYN spoke one of the languages she's fluent in, either Chinese or English, and English is better because then I could understand it too. So in terms of building the care team, the first step was to actually reserve a space in the maternity with the estimated due date. But then we had to pick an OBGYN from the list they provided of people who have privileges there. We selected our OBGYN, we began an email conversation with him, and we sent a ton of documents, and I thought it was very smart that Susie started translating everything from China. We had all these Chinese lab results and such, and you translated those.
By the time we came to Paris, I was already 37 week pregnant. So I already have a thick folder of all the test results reports with me, basically mostly in Chinese. But I want my French doctor would be understand the result. So we start to just use a Google Translator to take pictures and translate that and print it out. And we translate into both English for us and French for our French doctors. So we have a even thicker amount of folders with us every time we go to see all the doctors.
Talk a little bit about the difference, your experience with the doctors, and specifically like the OBGYN, but like doctors versus the sage-femmes. Tell people what the sage-femmes are here in France.
It's a little bit different than in China. Sage-femme here, or aka midwife, is somebody, they're between doctor. They're not doctors, they're also not nurse. It's just someone in between. They help you to prepare having a baby. It helps you to deliver the baby, like being assistant to our OBGYN, and even after the delivery, they will help you to do all the trainings, to do all the practices, help your muscles to grow back, basically.
Absolutely. We were really surprised the whole prenatal care aspect wasn't just the doctor, although there was a lot of seeing the doctor, and there were a lot of lab tests to be done, a lot of blood work, a lot of tests, glucose tests, everything you can think of. We were either at the doctor's or the lab seemingly every day or every other day for the few weeks leading up to the pregnancy. So in the US, I've never had a baby myself, obviously, but I have a lot of friends who have, and I'm aware of how the medical system works. And a midwife in the US is most commonly someone who helps to deliver a baby sort of in place of a doctor. It's not sort of like a right hand part of the team. They're actually leading the team in the US, and it's sort of an alternative to the traditional, doctor-led delivery. Very commonly a midwife is someone who's helping you if you want to deliver at home or like an alternative environment versus a hospital. But here, the midwives are just amazing. We found that, of course, like other medical professionals, they all have specialties. So some of them specialize in training parents-to-be on here's what to expect, how the delivery goes. Some of them, as Susie said, help after birth with rehabilitation of getting your body back to normal. Some of them are, of course, helping during the run-up to and the actual delivery and training you how to take care of the baby. It's really impressive. And I know our experience with St. Felicity was kind of especially fortunate, but we understand that's the standard way things are done here. And we're very, very happy that we got to experience it and tell you about it.
Yeah, I remember we have some of the sage-femmes probably do help you to breastfeed. Although in France, breastfeeding is not, you do not have any pressure to do breastfeeding. But if you want to, sage-femme is the role to help you to do that if you want.
All along the way, they were encouraging you to do whatever feels the best to you, and they were emphasizing that there's no shame in not breastfeeding, and that formulas are great, and so your baby will be fine if the baby's only on formula. But if you want to breastfeed, here's how you do that and how you pump and how we can help you figure that out. And if you want to do a combination, which is what you did for a while. In the US, I do have friends who've had babies who have talked either on social media or that I've otherwise heard, where they felt this enormous pressure to breastfeed, and in many cases their little friend group gave them shame and guilt over this. Every woman can't, every woman doesn't want to. And in France, the whole point was, you don't have to want to. It doesn't make you less of a mother, less of a woman. You know, do what you want to do.
I remember that day when we just finished delivering Jenny. There is a doctor or nurse or sage-femme, I forgot. She came to ask me, do you want to do breastfeeding? It's totally up to you. If you want to do it, they will help you to pump. But if you do not want to, they will go other way. It's totally up to you. It's just they wouldn't like convince you to do breastfeeding at all. It's just si vous voulez. It's just if you want to do it, it's good. If you don't want to do it, it's okay too. It's your choice.
And because we had moved the baby onto formula after a few weeks, I got to participate even more. I mean, I was still giving bottles at night when Susie was asleep, but the details of her pumping and trying to pump are her business. But we basically weren't pumping and storing a ton of milk, so we were supplementing with the formula. And Jenny is growing like the proverbial weed right now. She's happy, she's healthy, she's big for her size, she's a good sized girl, and so it obviously worked out okay. One thing that wasn't totally surprising, and I guess it shouldn't have been surprising, is that although Susie had translated all these documents, every country's healthcare system has slightly different ways they like to do things, information they include in the patient's dossier, etc., the way they say it. And then, of course, some medical terms don't translate, even using the best translation. They don't translate in a way that makes total sense to the people in the other culture. So there were quite a few things that you had to redo here, although we had a version from China.
Yeah, I totally understand. Imagine if I have to change a hospital, even in Beijing, change hospital from A to B, I probably need to do the test in their hospital to make sure the doctors believe or have a confidence in the report. So we were prepared to redo the test as soon as we arrived here. So we basically did all the tests which matters most. For example, we did the glucose, the blood sugar test again. We did the ultrasound again, all the basic general blood test again.
Yeah, and we had, besides the ultrasounds in China, it's its own little story about our little side trip. But early in the pregnancy, we decided to take, we had the ability to take a little bit of a vacation again for about a week. We went to Spain in part to have they call the 4D ultrasound, where it's 3-dimension video plus the audio, because without getting too deep in this, in China, they don't let the patient see the ultrasound monitor when they're doing the ultrasound, and they don't put all the results in the forms for you because it's illegal for them to reveal sex for a variety of complicated reasons. And we were going to be happy whether it was a boy or a girl, but we wanted to know, and we wanted to start figuring out, okay, which of these names should we sort of start focusing on? Do we really focus on deciding on the boy's name or deciding on a girl's name? And we also kind of wanted that really cool ultrasound where you see the 3D model of the baby and everything that we had seen on social media and from friends. And so, yeah, we took a little trip back to Europe, and we went to Madrid for 3 days, and Madrid's awesome. We had a great time there anyway, but that was really special. So we moved here with all the Chinese documents and ultrasounds, plus this really detailed dossier with simulated color photos and maps and graphs and charts. The Spanish ultrasound was absolutely insane how detailed this was. And that gave a slightly different estimated due date than the Beijing one had, We got here, and one of the first things that her OBGYN had us do was send us to a colleague of his at the American hospital to do yet another ultrasound, as she mentioned, and then they really narrowed down the due date. It turns out that the Spanish was maybe a little closer to accurate, and then the American hospital was a few days different, as I remember. So, of course, an ultrasound is really just about making sure that the baby's development is on track and healthy. We just derived a closer due date as a result of that. But the point of the ultrasound was to really tell us with certainty that the baby was cooking as she should. Another benefit of being pregnant here in France is that you are eligible for prenatal classes that train the parents-to-be on everything from what to expect during labor and delivery to knowing when you're going into labor in the first place versus it being a false labor, but then also how to deal with the baby when you get home. And because we didn't move here until late in the process, we missed the ones that are complimentary and part of the process. So we paid for private ones, but we arranged it through the hospital. And that sage-femme was amazing.
It gave us the confidence because this is our first baby. We never had experiences in delivery room. So with thousands of imaginations in our head, we still wouldn't have never had experiences in there and what to do, what to worry about. So basically the training from sage-femme, the prenatal parts, just help us to be confident. Now I'm thinking all the information she gave us, the training she gave us, listening, hearing her, seeing that, and you practice with her, just make you feel more confident for the due date.
We realized, talking about this after the fact, how comfortable we were, relatively speaking, going into the maternity to give for the baby. We felt like we really had an understanding of what's going to happen, kind of the timeline it's going to happen. And it was a huge relief to me to have that kind of laid out ahead of time and to talk through stuff and to have someone to talk to about this.
Yeah. Also, because we arrived Paris late, and if we can be here a little bit earlier, we can join the free training provided by the hospital. And I would prefer that if we get a chance, because you would be surrounded by other parents, and the communication with them also gonna help you to calm down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you didn't really have a prenatal mama group at all. I mean, here, you didn't have a group of people you could talk to, and
exactly.
And now you have your mom's group that you online. That has been helpful after the fact, but it's a lot of where do I find a good deal on this or that or the other now that we have our babies, Which
grocery stores would have diapers on sale?
Exactly, yeah. That one woman is really focused on getting everybody to the sale. The hospital gave us a checklist of things to prepare for and to bring, and specifically what they call the valise de maternity, which are all the things that they want you to bring for mama and the partner, in this case, the papa. And the mom's list is extensive. It includes nightgowns, maternity pads, toiletries, and then snacks, it says for the partner only because they want to control what mama eats, and chargers for your phone and stuff. And for the dad, it's basically bring your phone and charger, some water, and of course a camera, and in the case of our hospital, cash, because the vending machines only took cash or coins. On that list, there was something that really confused us both, and it didn't translate in a way that made sense. But what was that item that really surprised us?
That's the spray. Have you ever see the Evian or those kind of brand spray in a grocery store?
Like spray mist water?
Yeah. In China, we usually use that to pre-makeup or after makeup. But in Paris, this kind of spray is quite popular, widely used to cool yourself down. So we were asked to bring that to the delivery room to just imagine if I'm dehydrated, but I can't drink tons of water. Then my husband can spray the water on my face, and I can drink that basically.
Yeah, it's open.
Yeah, we use a little bit of that.
A little bit.
We have a giant bottle.
Yeah, and do we still have it?
We do.
Still have it somewhere? Yeah, I didn't know if we managed to leave that in the last move or not. So one other factor to consider, of course, is where are you living and where is this maternity? So once we'd identified the maternity where we wanted to give birth, which is in the 15th district of Paris, and we identified our doctor who's in the 16th, we looked around in that area through Airbnb to find a place that would be convenient to both the doctor and the hospital. And that worked out great because we were either at the doctor or running errands for the doctor, well, for us, but the doctor was sending us to go to this lab or to go to this follow-up appointment at the other hospital. And so it was very convenient to be so close to the doctor and also close enough to the maternity that if she went into labor early, we could get there without a big delay. So in terms of checking into the hospital and actually having the baby, we had set a date because the doctor wanted to induce. Our baby's head was not abnormally large, but getting large enough that it would make a natural birth more difficult. And Susie wanted to have a natural birth. We wanted to have a natural birth, if at all possible. And so he chose an inducement date of January 5th. That happens to be my birthday. So what we did is that we checked into the hospital on the 5th. We had my birthday dinner at home a day earlier on the 4th. But we checked into the hospital and they got us situated and they ran still some more tests and hooked her up to monitors and everything. But they decided to induce, and they actually induced on the 5th. And then I'm looking at the notes, they monitor for about 16 hours and your water broke the morning, 3 a.m. of January 6th. And that's when the adventure started. What was that like? What was that like when you realized, oh, it's game on now?
It hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts before they gave me the dermatology. What's that word for?
A dermatologist is a skin doctor. You mean an epidural?
Epidural.
Okay, so that's okay. So it's okay.
Sorry, I'm not good with all the medical.
I know. That's
medical names.
That's fine. That's fine. So yeah, they gave you an epidural.
Epidural. So you might be interested in when can I get epidural? If you wanna, if you wanna deliver the baby in a natural way, in this hospital, it's when you open up one finger. Basically, whenever you want to. It's not like there is you feel so much pain and the doctors wouldn't give you epidural. Epidural. So don't worry about that, because I know I'm not familiar with that in the US, but in China, because of that kind of doctors are limited, and for natural births, nobody knows when you will deliver the baby, so it's difficult to schedule one. So you could end up not having a epiduralist.
No, it's a different doctor.
You end up not having epidural soon enough, or your doctor's here, but you already delivered the baby. So there would be a lot of pain if you deliver baby in China, but that's not the case here in France. You would have epidural soon enough. Yes, I feel painful, but I guess it could be more pain more painful. So that's a big mind relief if you would have a baby here in France.
Now, this is the part where you're going to make a lot of the women jealous / envious / angry. How long was your actual labor from when you got to the point where you're officially in labor to when the baby's out?
It was only 8 minutes and 4 pushes. And this is our first baby.
Yeah. Everyone was kind of amazed, and especially female friends who we've talked to after, just are absolutely happy for you, but also often had very different experiences.
Yeah. It's our doctor or dermatologist.
It's the anesthesiologist.
And
the drug doctor. The drug doctor.
Okay, the drug doctor is so good. Our doctor, our OBGYN, so good, and especially our my sage-femme is so nice.
Yeah.
So she's my sunshine. she was my sunshine in the delivery room. She helped me so much. So basically, because of them, our delivery was so smooth.
I could not believe. Well, I mean, the whole thing. It's our first child, my first child that I've seen born right in front of me, and. Our doctor, as friendly as he is, he always also radiated like the real supreme confidence that comes from vast experience. Mm-hmm. And watching him in action, it was a thing of beauty. Like, I don't follow baseball, but it's like one of those people that's just like one of the top people in the world, and they're just in the zone and in the groove. And he's like, vroom, 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 vroom. Don't. I mean, it was beautiful, and he was so calm and cool, but like he was in that focused flow state of, I have one task on earth that is important, and he was so in it. Like, watching his level of focus, I felt so comfortable. You were, of course, dealing with the pushing and the pain and everything, even with the epidural. I know it was not comfortable to give birth, but I was so happy that we found this guy and this facility. We opted for a private room. We opted for an upgrade versus a shared room, and we opted for the upgrade with the daddy couch, which is like a reclining chair that becomes a bed in theory. So they say, easily the least comfortable place I've ever slept. By the way, my one little note for St. Felicity is perhaps talk to some of the people who slept on those for their feedback. And consider an alternative, because I might have been more comfortable sleeping on a blanket on the floor, and I considered it one night, but nonetheless, it was amazing. The care, there was someone in the room pretty much constantly. Every 3 hours the baby had to be fed, and again, the sage-femmes and the other staff, the other doctors who came in to help us, the nurses, like there are nurses, and they just made us feel like we could do this. They showed us how to do everything. They helped Susie there was the conversation about breastfeeding, yes, no combination. Here's how you change her. Here's how you feed her. Here's how you bathe her. Here's what's normal. Here's what's not normal. Here's what's normal.
Yeah, the amount of the care, patience, love we got in our hospital is I can't even imagine how that can be even more. Yeah. Compared to that, if I deliver Jenny in China, I just imagine that 1/4.
1/5. Yeah.
It's just everybody's so patient, so nice.
And that's reflected in the healthcare system, as we have discovered. Honestly, there are times we've been like going to a doctor's appointment for something, and it's not that they're chatting about sports or the weather or wasting time, but they're talking to you so much, and there's not the sense generally of, we got to go, let's get you out the door. Mm-hmm. They will really talk, where I've actually sometimes, because I know there are other people waiting, and I thought, well, it's like, appreciate all the care, doc, but you got what you need from us. We know what we need to do, and we got people out here.
Yeah.
But in fairness, everyone gets that same level of attention as needed. And I've told Susie anecdotally what I know from friends and from just growing up as an American, and especially in the recent few decades. I think you didn't believe me at first, but I mean, you can search it and find out it's true and know it's true. I mean, there are women who might go into a hospital in the U.S. in the morning and deliver, and they're out the door that night. There are women who actually don't even spend a night in the hospital in America. That's not super common, but it's not so uncommon that it's like, spotting a unicorn. It's not like rare. It happens enough that people understandably complain about it, or that you're out in a couple of days. And we will get into some statistics here at the end about leave that they give the mother and the father in France. We'll give you some numbers around this. But in terms of the postnatal care and the rehabilitation, so the in-hospital recovery was part of it, where they gave you the breastfeeding support and everything.
Yeah.
Regular visits from pediatrician, OB, and then the midwives. And then there was the at-home visit. It was, looking at our notes, it was 8 days afterward. And what happened there?
Yeah, there was a sage-femme we booked, which is, I guess if you are locals, it's free.
Right. We paid a modest amount, I think. I think that in-home visit was maybe €60.
Yeah, not expensive. Even
not
for
super
us,
expensive,
it's
with
not
no
expensive.
insurance.
Yeah. She came to our place, checked on me, checked on baby, and we chatted, and she cares if I have a post-pregnancy depression, which is helpful. Because it's, I know it's common. It happens to me a little bit. So talking to her, helped me to feel understand, to feel more, feel relieved talking to her. So, and she helped me with the breastfeeding stuff. She gave me a silicone.
Yeah, she had like a little silicone cup to supposedly help keep the little chewer from chewing your chest off. Yeah. Jenny's grown up so far to really like to bite things, so it started early that she liked to really attack things. I was so impressed when you told me that, I mean, I overheard some of it, but they went off, and the sage-femme took her in our bedroom and examined her physically, after checking the baby, and examined Susie physically. But then there was the whole personal conversation in private that she told me about, that she just referenced, where there's the whole mental check-in as part of it. And I just thought, wow, that's really impressive. And this is a standard part of the care protocol here in France. The other piece of postnatal care is that you ended up going to another sage-femme. We moved between these two items. But you ended up going to another sage-femme for a series of rehabilitation classes. Yeah,
that really helps. I know most moms would go to this kind of a sage-femme to do the training. So some would choose to the kidneys. Some would choose to stay with the sage-femme. They will help you to do some exercises to regain your muscle, to control your pee and boobs.
Kind of get everything tightened up how it should be again.
Yeah.
Get everything back to normal.
Those series of trainings actually works. It works, and you need to come back and practice too. And besides that, talking to sage-femme also helps enormously too. Because they've been dealing with all kinds of situations of they're experienced. They have experiences to work with you. So by talking to them also helps too.
And then the third part of the postnatal care that was a real surprise to us was the PMI. Tell people about what the PMI is.
Yeah, so basically in France, everybody has a book. Every kid has a book.
The carnet santé, the health record.
Yeah, and it has all the record of your weight, your height, your
vaccinations.
Vaccinations, and everybody would go to this kind of facilities called PMI, and there you would, the services are free, and vaccines free too. So we take our baby to PMI every. It was 1 or 2.
Yeah, it was about every month until a certain point, and then it was every other month, and now it's certain milestones. Like we actually, as we record this, we will put this video out this same week that we're recording it. Next week we have our 18-month appointment at the PMI for Geneva, which is her 18-month vaccines and the check-in. They always do with someone who's like a staffer. I don't think they're typically midwives, but they have someone who's trained to do the basic checks of height and weight and ask the standard questions. And then there's a doctor on site who actually does the vaccines and does other little checkups as well.
Before, we don't know about the PMI, this kind of a service. So first time after Jenny's born, we went to pediatrician, and pediatrician is not free. So if you're gonna have a baby here, you just go directly to PMI. That's gonna save you some money and time and transport.
Absolutely, and the pediatrician said, you can go to a PMI, and we had heard that from people, but at least for that initial appointment, part of it, we didn't really know what the PMI was yet, and we hadn't really had much time. We were both in a semi dream state for probably a couple of months because we were sleeping 3 hours. We're alternating kind of 3 and then later 6 hour shifts with the baby, but we were all in outer space, and so we knew, okay, we can book an appointment with this pediatrician. It's going to cost money, but we understand how to book a doctor's appointment and show up. And then the pediatrician ended up saying, you should really go to a PMI because they do this for you. And Susie mentioned it's free until you have your health insurance. Certain vaccines, you do have to go, and they will tell you at one appointment, okay, the next appointment, we're going to need these things. These are free. These things, until you have your health insurance, you have to go buy it at the pharmacy and bring it to the appointment. But once you have your health insurance, it's all covered. And the cost of those things that you have to purchase before your health insurance is active, you keep the receipts, and then again, theoretically, you can get reimbursed. But some of them are a little expensive, but the service, again, it's free because guess what? France thinks it's important to have healthy people. They want everybody to be healthy. After you've been a resident for 3 months, you can apply for health insurance, and it's considered mandatory in a lot of ways to have this. I would say that it's a strong suggestion. So to help my aging memory, I'm going to refer to my notes to tell you about parental leave. So the standard maternity leave is 16 weeks, but you get longer if you have multiple children. Paternity leave for the dads or the partners is 25 days of paid leave, and then you get 3 extra days if there are multiple births. If you're resident in France for long enough, you can also apply for and benefit from a system called CAF, and that allows you to have different benefits. You can have a benefit for your housing, for different kinds of healthcare, and for pregnancy. We didn't have that set up before birth, so we're kind of out of luck there, but we're telling you so that you can possibly take advantage of it. Get to France early. If you aren't pregnant yet, but you want to have a baby in France, come on over. So as we're wrapping up, first of all, we will have deep dive videos, as mentioned, on a lot of these topics, specifically how-tos, more direct how-tos, where we walk you through each of these different processes. But some of the things that impressed us the most, as Susie already said, the focus on her mental health as well as her physical health and well-being impressed us both a lot, and I'm so grateful that you had that. The existence of sage-femmes, the integration of sage-femmes into the entire system, and there being sort of a sage-femme for every step of the process where a sage-femme as someone to help you is amazing. And then there's the social safety net part of France, where you have the PMI centers for free. Later, you have the CAF, where they actually help you with an allowance for having a child. And as far as things to avoid or some helpful tips to keep you out of trouble and make things go as smoothly as possible, if you are already resident in France, don't forget to declare your pregnancy before you're 14 weeks along. That gives you the full access to coverage through the insurance system. Also, secure your family doctor as soon as possible so that they can track your care and the baby's progress all along the way before you have your OBGYN looped in. If you don't speak French and you're navigating this by phone, don't forget you can prepare call scripts and practice your French. This is a great way to learn some French, is through going through this process. And Doctolib, doctolib.fr. They are in English and French and some other languages as well. Wonderful resource where you can identify providers near you who also might speak your language. Now, if you would like us to do a video breaking down the specific costs of a public versus a private labor and delivery and aftercare, let us know in the comments below. We have lots more coming up, including more how-to videos about the processes of life in France, as well as videos about our various adventures in France and around Europe and the UK, and a whole lot more. So if you love this kind of content, don't forget, like, subscribe, and
thanks for watching. A bientôt.
A bientôt.